Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of In the School Parking Lot. My name is Paul Everts. I'm your host. You can reach me on my email address, and I wish you would. It's BAND, the number 2, Band together at Comcast.net, or go to our handy dandy website, which is conductingmylife.com, where you can get that book. Check that book out. Woo-wee! Also, you'll see that I'm a speaker, trainer, coach for the John Maxwell team. Who is John Maxwell? You don't know who John Maxwell is? John Maxwell is a New York Times bestselling author on leadership. So if you'd like to have someone come out, work with you individually or your group that's close to you, give me a call. BAND, number 2 together, band together, Comcast.net. And then final thing, Venmo. Please, we would love to have your financial support. I'm not doing the monetary thing on any of my, I guess what you call it, social media. I'm just not. And I'm sorry I have Venmo. I apologize if that offends you. But that's what we have. We definitely would love to have your support. So who am I real fast? Been teaching high school since 1989. I'm now doing 4th through 12th grade at a charter school. I did work at a public school. However, the public school system said, keep Jesus Christ in the parking lot. Public school system said, you telling your students I love you is weird and unprofessional. And the public school system said, I don't care about your First Amendment rights. Stop using social media. The union said nothing. The union has an agenda. If the union says nothing, I would think the union would have stepped up and said, wait a second. They didn't. So here we go. Episode 19, the 13th of July, 2024. I am recording this on Tuesday, though, the 18th of June. Okay? But here we go. Episode 19. High school DEI office accuses students of white supremacy over senior gift at Thor mural in the state of Washington. This is by Katie Davenport. This was published the 12th of June, 2024. Okay, here we go. They had an issue with the mural promoting pure colonization, white power, white supremacy, and even going as far as to say that it was alluding to racist and anti-black imagery in the South. Student council members at a Washington State high school were accused of promoting white supremacy after proposing a mural of the school's unofficial mascot, the hammer-wielding Norse god Thor, be painted as their senior gift. The school district's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office raised concerns that the painting represents white supremacy and would need to be accompanied by women and people of color to meet the Evergreen Public School District's racial and gender equity standards, KTTH reports. Clarissa Hightower is the director of Equity and Inclusion at Evergreen Public Schools. Student counselors at Mountain View High School in Vancouver proposed the artwork because their school's mascot is the Thunders. And the name Thor translates to thunder. There's already a statue of Thor at the school's main entrance, which added further confusion among the student body government. Members of the council were summoned to appear before district staff, including the Equity Advancement Specialist. Quote, they had an issue with the image not being racially and gender inclusive, as well as upholding an image of pure colonization, white power, white supremacy, and even going as far as to say that it was alluding to racist and anti-black imagery of the South. This is a Norse god that's doing all this. Student council member Tara told KTTH. Tara said it was a, quote, very uncomfortable position for a bunch of high school students to be put in. Do you think? DEI needs to die. DIE. Say again. DEI needs to DIE die. Thank you, Jordan Peterson. I heard there's a company now that's hiring based on MEI. Merit, excellence, intelligence. That sounds more American than diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unbelievable. Very uncomfortable position for a bunch of high school students to be put in. I guess it's okay for those students to be uncomfortable because they're probably white and they're probably calling it, I don't know. People are crazy. You don't want kids to be in uncomfortable positions. That's why we have DEI, right? Don't get it. Don't get it. Clarissa Hightower is the Director of Equity and Inclusion. So when we're saying, where's all the money going to? Check her salary out. If she didn't have that position, that'd be more money going to other needed things. Maybe they need a vocational program. Cutting wood, making a, cutting board, making a lamp, how about changing the oil? Clarissa Hightower's job needs to be gone. Not Clarissa. Clarissa can go do something else in the school district. But her position, DIE. It's DIE. It needs to die. Okay. Ugh. Moving right along. Here's a book. I'm going to probably go overtime. I usually like to go 10 minutes, but the article's got me fuming. All right. This is a book you're not going to see in college classrooms because they don't want the new teachers to know there's a different way of thinking. You're not going to hear this book in staff lounges because if you did that, you'd be ostracized. Okay, here we go. Highly recommend this book. California's Literacy Disaster When Utopians Rule. The Children Suffer. B.K. Ekman from the book or article Pushback. It is easier to control a group than it is to control an individual. Whoa. All right. Some years ago, a lady in Southern California faxed me an article about California's literacy disaster, describing what happened when the whole language was introduced in California schools in 1987. The article, The Blackboard Bungle, by Jill Stewart, appeared in the March 1996 issue of LA Weekly. Ms. Stewart wrote the following. Since 1987, whole language theory has swept California. The theory's basic principles have been institutionalized in the form of a widely acclaimed reading framework adopted by the State Board of Public Education that downplays the teaching of traditional reading skills. Here we go. Gosh darn traditional reading skills. The core idea of the whole language, says one of the most vocal proponents, Mel Grubb, of the California Literature Project at Cal State Dominguez Hills. He says again, the core idea of whole language is that children no longer are forced to learn skills that are disembodied from the experience of reading a story. The enjoyment and the wonder of the story are absorbed just as the skills are absorbed, so he says. The author of the book says, apparently Mr. Grubb doesn't seem to know the difference between reading a story and learning how to read. Ms. Stewart continued. But whole language, which sounds so promising when described by its proponents, has proved to be a near disaster when applied to and by real people. In the 8 years since whole language first appeared in the state's grade schools, California's fourth grade reading scores have plummeted to nearly the bottom nationally, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Indeed, California's fourth graders are now such poor readers that only the children in Louisiana and Guam both hampered by pitifully backward education systems, get worse reading scores. And this again is from 1996, the Blackboard Bungle. And who's to blame for this near disaster, which is not near but an actual disaster? According to the article, the problem stemmed from a tragic misinterpretation of the state's 1989 reading framework. Was it a tragic misinterpretation or a deliberate misinterpretation? In 1987, California already had a horrendous reading problem. An article from the San Francisco Examiner, printed in the Patriot Ledger, reported, quote, almost 1 in 6 adults in California is functionally illiterate, and most of those who cannot read are native English speakers who went to school in the United States, according to a new study by the State Department of Education. The report says 3.1 million Californians can't read well enough to understand advertising in newspapers, simple recipes, or job applications. That's 1987. I'd like to see how much better it's gotten since 1987. Your guess is as good as mine. It probably hasn't. Okay, and I'd like to read the last paragraph of the chapter. Actually, no. Let's read this one. One tragic victim of California's faulty whole language reading programs was Carrie Jorgensen, former basketball star at Fresno State women's basketball team, who committed suicide in January 1996 at the age of 22 after struggling all her life with dyslexia. For Carrie, the written word had become an insurmountable barrier to growth. According to the Fresno Bee, quote, she dreaded the word or the world of words. She feared it. She cursed it. But too many years went by masking her secret. Too many days bottling her emotions. Jorgensen's fear was the ridicule of others, so she turned to her ploys, just anything to avoid the shame in her eyes. Carrie's dyslexia could have been cured with lessons in systematic, intensive phonics, but no one in California's education system cared. They produce dyslexics by the million, so why should they care about one? Ms. Stewart continues. Okay, here we go. What does she say? Unfortunately, while the group pursued its ideas within this cloistered atmosphere of growing consensus, emerging research was showing that just the reverse was true about how children learn to read. In the end, the committee produced a thick document that was adopted by the Board of Education and praised nationally on talk shows. Official textbooks were selected that were mostly literature. The book chosen by 80% of the school districts contained no lessons at all. Schools were expected to follow the new approach, and compliance officers began appearing in local classrooms. Compliance officers? Sounds like something out of a police state, but it did not take long for the horrors of whole language to become apparent. A grandmother by the name of Marion Joseph, a chief policy and analyst under former state superintendent Wilson Riles, found out by happenstance that the primary schools were no longer using primers. She contacted several teachers to find out what was going on. She related, quote, I got almost without exception, oh my God, Marion, we are having a terrible time. The new reading method is not working, end of quote. If they tried to teach phonics or word attack skills to the kids who were not getting it from the storybook and the invented writings, compliance officers came in from their school district office and ordered a stop to it. It was terrible stuff, virtually a new religion, a cult. Okay, it went 15 minutes, I'm sorry, but these two things are pretty spicy today. Please come back next week and see more. Next week's chapter, cooperative learning, communist ideology in the classroom. Thanks a lot, guys. Again, Venmo account. Love you. God bless. Till next time.